Imagine finding your soulmate when your entire dating pool fits around one smoky fire. No apps, no bars, no private bedrooms, only relatives, predators, and aggressive personal odours. You might assume cavemen simply grabbed partners and let natural selection handle complaints. But terrible partner choices threatened food, safety, children, alliances, and everyone's winter survival. Prehistoric attraction was probably less random chaos and more high-stakes social engineering with fur. The answer survives not in love letters, but in bones, beads, camps, and ancient DNA. Those clues reveal small groups connected to surprisingly large networks of possible partners. People travelled, gathered, showed skills, and often avoided reproducing with their close relatives. Romance looked different, yet the central problem was painfully recognisable, even in the Pleistocene. How did you meet someone suitable, impress them, and survive their entire family afterward? First, caveman is a cartoon label, not one people, culture, place, or time period. It lumps together Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and other humans across enormous stretches of time. Some lived in caves, many did not, because prehistoric housing had terrible preservation warranties. Caves preserve bones and tools better than open camps gradually erased by wind, water, and weather. Archaeology, therefore, shows survivors of decay, not a complete prehistoric dating archive with convenient records. Flirting leaves almost nothing durable unless somebody carved it, buried it, or eventually became related. Sadly, no fossilised pickup line has survived long enough to pass scientific peer review. Bones can reveal age, injuries, diet, movement, and sometimes biological relationships between buried individuals. Ancient DNA can expose kinship, population size, migration, and reproduction between once separate groups. Tools and ornaments reveal skill, identity, exchange, and the reach of wider social networks. Hearths show shared space, though not who nervously chose the seat beside whom that evening. Modern foragers provide useful comparisons, but they are living societies, never frozen copies of our ancestors. Human mating systems are flexible, shaped by ecology, custom, family interests, and individual choices. Prehistoric courtship probably varied enormously across different regions, climates, communities, and many thousands of years. Every confident answer, therefore, needs a small, archaeological asterisk and an extremely large amount of humility. Many mobile foragers likely spent daily life in residential groups containing only a few dozen people. That created intimacy, cooperation, and one unfortunate fact. Everybody remembered your most embarrassing childhood moments. Some campmates were close relatives, shrinking the sensible partner pool even further than raw numbers suggested. Reproduction between close relatives increases genetic risks, so wider connections offered an important long-term advantage. At Sung here in Russia, genomes from people buried about 34,000 years ago offered a remarkable clue. Several individuals shared an elaborate burial, yet genetic testing showed they were not all closely related. Their genomes also showed limited inbreeding, despite belonging to a small, underlying population of foragers. Researchers concluded that small residential groups were embedded inside a much larger mating network. In other words, your camp was tiny, but your wider social world could be surprisingly large. Neanderthal DNA from Chagirskaya Cave provides another, much narrower snapshot of ancient community life. Closely related individuals there included a father and adolescent daughter within the same small community. Genetic patterns best fit a community of roughly 20 people, although the estimate remains uncertain. Their mitochondrial diversity was much higher than their Y chromosome diversity within that particular sample. The best explanation was substantial female migration between communities, not a universal law for prehistory. This evidence comes from one isolated region and one moment, so scientific caution matters greatly. Prehistoric dating geography apparently involved fewer notifications and considerably more walking blisters than ours. Love was embedded inside a survival network long before anyone separated romance from practical cooperation. Mobile groups followed water, plants, game, stone, seasons, and inherited knowledge of reliable routes. Their paths could cross at rivers, hunting grounds, quarries, coastlines, or sheltered seasonal valleys. Some meetings were brief, others probably became repeated gatherings among already connected communities over many seasons. These were not necessarily festivals with wristbands, security lines, and disappointing beverage prices. Repeated contact let strangers become familiar before anyone considered changing camps, households, or partners. Relatives could carry news, reputations, and introductions between groups across the wider landscape. A prospective partner arrived with a social history, never an empty profile or total anonymity. People could watch whether someone shared food, kept promises, and behaved calmly during danger. Partnerships may also have strengthened alliances between families, bands, or neighbouring communities in uncertain times. One partner could transform unfamiliar outsiders into helpers, trading partners, and significantly safer neighbours. Objects travelled too, preserving routes that prehistoric conversations and relationships could never leave behind. Ostrich eggshell beads reveal connections across eastern and southern Africa, roughly 50,000 years ago. Similar bead styles linked regions separated by thousands of kilometres across many generations of makers. That does not prove a 3,000-kilometre romance, however heroic the walking montage would look. It proves that social information and cultural styles could move surprisingly far between connected populations. Climate sometimes opened corridors and sometimes cut them, reshaping who could regularly meet whom. A flooded river could become the prehistoric equivalent of permanent account suspension without an appeals process. Among recent foragers, either men or women may leave their natal group after forming relationships. We cannot copy those patterns directly backward, but they demonstrate broad human residential flexibility. Finding love sometimes meant meeting travellers. At other times, it meant becoming one yourself. Without profile pictures, attraction still began with visible bodies, voices, behaviour, and growing familiarity. Health, age, energy, and appearance may have mattered, though every standard was culturally specific. Inside a small community, competence was displayed publicly through ordinary work every single day. Everyone saw who found food, repaired tools, calmed conflict, or somehow ignored obvious smoke. Skill advertised usefulness, but contribution was never limited to one heroic hunter posing dramatically. Gathering, childcare, cooking, tracking, healing, and knowledge all supported the survival of a community. Generosity may have mattered because shared food built trust and reputations beyond a single household. A successful hunter who never shared was basically a freezer with extremely poor social skills. Storytelling and humour could display intelligence, memory, confidence, timing, and awareness of an audience. We cannot prove one excellent mammoth joke ever produced a successful second date afterward. Yet laughter, attention, and conversation remain powerful bonding tools across many known human societies. Grooming, touch, proximity, and repeated cooperation may have communicated interest without leaving durable evidence. If dependable storytellers impress you, subscribe. This tribe has unusually low mammoth-related turnover. Personal ornaments provided another visible layer of identity long before biographies or written introductions existed. At Blombos Cave, perforated shell beads were deliberately worn around 75,000 years ago. Other sites preserve ochre, beads, pendants, and decorated clothing elements from later prehistoric periods. Such objects could signal belonging, status, age, achievement, or simply an individual aesthetic preference. They were not standardized Stone Age relationship badges offering verified meanings and customer support. Decoration still made bodies socially readable inside larger gatherings filled with less familiar people. Hair, paint, feathers, leather, and scent may have mattered, but most of those choices vanished. Archaeology remembers the shell while forgetting the person who once noticed and admired it. Attraction was probably layered. Appearance opened attention, while behaviour determined whether attention survived daily life. Most prehistoric time was spent working, travelling, repairing, processing food, and caring for other people. Courtship probably happened beside ordinary tasks rather than inside a separate, specially designated dating zone. Two people could gather plants, scrape hides, carry water, or patiently tend a hearth together. Repetition revealed patience, kindness, temper, and whether someone vanished whenever difficult work appeared. Shared meals offered calories, conversation, and the oldest possible version of splitting the bill fairly. Gifts may have included food, tools, ornaments, pigments, or scarce materials useful to everyday life. Flowers were optional. A clean cutting edge communicated far more during a difficult winter. Offering rich marrow probably lacked elegance, but its nutritional fundamentals were genuinely excellent. Privacy was scarce because camps were social, crowded, busy, and often acoustically enthusiastic places. Any developing relationship likely unfolded beneath the observation of relatives, children, and committed professional gossipers. Family approval may have mattered whenever partnerships changed residence, labour, obligations, or valuable alliances. Group acceptance was practical, because one dangerous conflict could threaten the safety of everyone nearby. A new couple did not merely combine feelings, they rearranged responsibilities between entire households. One partner might join another camp while both maintained important ties to more distant kin. Those kin ties could provide food, shelter, information, and refuge during shortages or serious conflict. Care during injury or illness offered especially powerful evidence that a person could be reliable. Healed ancient injuries prove sustained care, although they cannot identify which caregiver felt romantic love. Someone brought food, offered protection, and tolerated the patient's prehistoric bedside manners for weeks. Children increase the stakes because human childhood is unusually long, expensive, and intensely demanding. Parents often depended on grandparents, siblings, and other helpers beyond the immediate couple for survival. Prehistoric love was therefore less a private bubble than a cooperative community project with consequences. Humans commonly form pair bonds, but no single relationship system has ever defined our entire species. Long partnerships, serial partners, plural unions, and looser arrangements all occur among known human societies. Prehistoric societies probably varied too, although their precise rules and expectations rarely survive materially. There was no universal cave wedding, shared vow, or ceremonial saber-toothed best man for everyone. Burials and genomes reveal biological relationships, not the social or legal meanings people assigned them. A durable partnership could coordinate childcare, food sharing, defense, movement, and long-term social obligations. Sexual attraction might begin a bond, but daily reliability helped keep that bond useful and trusted. Reputation mattered after conflict. Failed hunts, sickness, hunger, and exhausting travel tested everyone repeatedly. The glamorous partner was probably the one who returned carrying enough perfectly dry firewood. Nothing says commitment like not wandering away during a blizzard when supplies become frighteningly low. Compatibility included workload, temperament, kin relations, fertility, health, and ordinary affection between two people. Pregnancy and birth carried serious risks without modern medicine, dependable sanitation, or stored surplus. Childhood illness, accidents, hunger, and death repeatedly tested every household an emotional bond. Emotional attachment may have made cooperation steadier, grief deeper, and separation painfully harder to endure. Choice could also be constrained by family interests, unequal power, scarcity, or very limited alternatives. Prehistory was not a romantic utopia, and coercion or interpersonal violence certainly existed sometimes. It was also not the non-stop kidnapping cartoon once repeated in many terrible modern illustrations. Specific rates and customs remain unknowable. Freedom and constraint probably varied between societies and individuals. Beneath those differences, attachment likely felt recognizable because these ancient people were fully human. Ancient DNA adds one especially awkward chapter. Different human populations sometimes had children together. Many living people outside Africa carry a small percentage of inherited Neanderthal ancestry today. A girl from Denisova Cave had a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father. Her genome proves reproduction across groups, but it cannot preserve consent, affection, or relationship duration. The encounter could reflect partnership, coercion, captivity, exchange, or one brief relationship between travellers. Science cannot responsibly choose a comforting love story merely because that version sounds emotionally better. What DNA proves is that social and biological boundaries were sometimes genuinely permeable between populations. People met, communicated somehow, and crossed divisions that archaeologists still struggle to reconstruct confidently. Shared landscapes created contact between populations carrying different tools, customs, appearances, and family histories. The first Meet the Parents dinner may therefore have required an entirely different human lineage at the fire. Ancient DNA records reproductive consequences with extraordinary precision while remaining silent about every emotion involved. Names, jokes, promises, and regrets vanished. Descendants quietly carried fragments of that forgotten encounter forward. Love is archaeology's invisible variable, central to real lives, yet almost impossible to excavate directly. Today, algorithms enlarge our dating pool. Prehistoric networks accomplish that same task using human feet. Their profile was reputation, observed slowly, and reviewed by nearly everyone they already knew. Compatibility meant cooperating under pressure, not matching opinions about favourite television shows or restaurant choices. Friends and family still introduce partners, approve them, warn us, and interfere with magnificent confidence. Jewellery still signals identity, meals still court, and humour still makes social intelligence attractive. We change the interface, but many underlying signals remain stubbornly and recognisably ancient. No evidence tells us whether Paleolithic people believed in one uniquely destined soulmate for life. They probably experienced desire, jealousy, tenderness, grief, and difficult choices in many culturally varied ways. Their love was neither simpler nor purer. It operated under harsher material and social constraints. So how did cavemen find love? Through movement, networks, reputation, cooperation, and enormous amounts of luck. They met beyond close kin, watched behaviour, exchanged signals, and gradually built practical bonds together. That was not primitive romance. It was sophisticated human social intelligence working without written instructions. They searched for someone who stayed when food ran low and the shared fire burned even lower.